call the meeting to order at 6:08, and I will share our vision and mission. Every student's receiving engaging and challenging learning experiences to reach their greatest potentials and thrive in a diverse global society. And mission is Fort Bragg Unified School District delivers exceptional, engaging, equitable, and collaborative learning opportunities for all students. And so Board of Trustees are conducting in-person meetings today, and until further notice. Normally we live stream to YouTube, but today we're having technical difficulties, so we will upload the recording after the meeting. Members of the public who wish to address the board during the board meeting are asked to please submit prior to the start of the meeting by emailing, if you can't make in-person, board meeting at fbusd.us, and staff will make all attempts to share and record any submissions received prior to or during the board meeting. However, depending on time, late submissions may be provided to the board after the conclusion of the meeting, and comments are limited to 3 minutes each. And since we are in person, I'll also go ahead and read our announcement that individuals may address the board on agenda items on both the closed session and regular session agenda items during public participation and/or at the time they are under consideration by completing the form provided at the table at the entrance and submitting the form to Renee. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per individual. Speakers will be chosen in random order. Each person may only speak once per agenda topic and is required to address the board from the podium. Public comment cannot be acted upon or discussed by the board unless placed on the agenda at a subsequent meeting in accordance with the law, which is the Brown Act. The board may request staff to respond orally at the meeting or in writing at a future time. A total of 20 minutes public comment per topic will be allowed. So those are our disclosures. And there's nothing to report. There was no action taken in closed session. And our next item is approval of the agenda. Is there anything that needs to be pulled on the agenda? If there is nothing to be pulled from the agenda, may I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
And a second?
I'll second.
Any objections? Okay, seeing none, the agenda is approved. And do we have public comment on non-agenda items? And since we do have folks here, thank you for attending our meeting. So I would think that our in-person would go first. So do we have anything on non-agenda items that anyone would like to speak on?
Yes, we do. We have 3 speakers on non-agenda items.
Okay.
First one is Mike Marr. Mr. Marr? Do I have that correct?
Hi.
Mr. Marr?
Thank you.
You should
Would
come
you
up
like
to the podium.
Speak at the podium?
And
Sorry, then we can hear you fine.
Sorry.
You have 3 minutes allotted for speaking.
Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. I don't know what the agenda is, but I know what's in the whispers and the tea leaves. And I know what Sacramento is getting ready to mandate. And I'm here to protest vaccine mandates for students. And mask mandates for that matter. And there's plenty of scientific evidence about it all. But nobody seems to want to read it. Anyhow, I'm just here to register that. I'm not a parent, but I work with kids in the area, plenty of family and friends. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Sarita Kohlberg. You have 3 minutes to address the board. Thank you very much.
Hi, well, I don't usually speak publicly, but I'm here to support Michelle and the families that I care for. I've been a full-time child care provider in this town for 22 years at the end of this year. I've raised 2 children here in these schools and have grandkids that'll be starting next year, the first one. And I just adamantly believe in our Constitution and a parent's right to do what's best for their own children, and not any of your right or the governor or anyone else's right to tell them what to do. I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but I've gone out of my way to, our whole family's vaccinated, but emergency use, trial by fire, using kids for lab rats, not okay. They've all been healthy, what everyone's been doing. In child care, we were open the whole time you were closed. Everyone's been healthy. It's just not necessary. It's a risk versus reward, always. When it comes to medical care, in pretty much anything in life, it's all risk versus reward. And there's just not enough reward for an illness that is not targeting children. It's disproportionately not targeting children, especially compared to, say, H1N1. H1N1 came in, went, didn't really go anywhere. It's still here. It's still making people ill. It hospitalized and harmed children at a rate far greater than COVID is, and everyone's ignored that. And we didn't go through any of this nonsense. So, you know, the vaccine is my #1 complaint. I don't think children should have to sit in masks breathing CO2. There's lots of science on that too. But #1, not to say that parents don't have a right to choose what's injected into their child, or themselves for that matter. It's just not right. And so, thank you for, listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And our third speaker, Michelle Schulte, is that correct? Am I saying that correctly?
Michelle Schwartz.
Schwartz, I
Yeah.
apologize. Okay, thank you.
I definitely don't speak in public, and I wasn't really thinking I was going to come here to say this, but thanks to the two people that just came up and said what they said. Everything that they said. I'm a mother of 3, a grandmother of 2, and forcing anyone to put anything in their body is not okay, and we have got to get these kids' faces and smiles back. Their spirits are just obviously struggling, and teaching our children that they came into this world ill-equipped for what's out in this world is not okay. These kids and every single one of us came in equipped to deal with what nature is giving us. So no to the vaccine mandates, and let's get these smiles back out there so the world can enjoy them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any more public comment on non-agenda items? So we do have an email that came to board meeting at fbusd.us.
So let me
That
read
is-
the disclosure before you read that.
Okay.
So the following public comment was received by the district using the public comment email address. For ease of public participation, it will be read into the record by a district employee. This should not be construed as an endorsement of this comment by the district or as the position of the district.
So we have 2 emails that are on non-agenda items. The first one is from Melissa Warner. Hi, FBUSD. I'm a proud parent of an 11th and an 8th grader. I'm very concerned with Governor Newsom's recent COVID-19 vaccine mandate that was announced on October 1st, 2021. I do not support this mandate, and his mandate is not a law. Never in history has a flu vaccine been required in school. This is not comparable to the MMR vaccine. Our children have rights to say what enters into their body, and parents have rights to protect their children. I am a healthcare worker, and I have personally witnessed people infected by COVID-19. People, no matter of vaccine status, are still getting sick. Vaccinated people are still showing signs of being sick, that some are needing to be hospitalized. Never has a child K-12 been hospitalized at AHMC over COVID, and FBUSD has statistical data tracking students infected with COVID, showing no positive cases or a spike in COVID. Please remember, a child infected by COVID only show mild signs of being sick. To this population, COVID is a cold or flu. Unvaccinated children are not going to harm anybody or the vulnerable. Vaccinated people still spread COVID-19. It does not slow the spread of the disease. Good hand washing and respiratory etiquette stops the spread. When anybody feels sick, they should stay home. I have been exempt from the COVID-19 vaccine, and I respectfully ask FBUSD to honor any religious or medical exemption for students. Statistical evidence has shown COVID-19 will not kill K-12 students, and they fully recover without needing to be hospitalized or using up much medical resources. A concerned parent, Melissa. The second email we received on a non-agenda item is from Elizabeth Willis. I am so upset that there are no buses to take my children to and from school safely. I have an older vehicle and cannot guarantee them reliable transportation every day. Does this mean they will fail because I cannot take them to school each day? When it rains, they can get sick because of the cold and windy days we have here in our town when they walk to and from school. My 9th grader lives over 2 miles away from school, and my middle schooler lives over 1 mile from school. I will not allow my children to walk to and from school every day. My 9th grader carpools with a neighbor in the morning and occasionally is tardy in first period. This is not his fault, but he must do detention for it anyway. If there were bus services, this would never happen. He would be on time. Why is it okay that my children are allowed to carpool with other families when COVID is such a concern? Do you not care about the safety of my children? The school district is being very irresponsible about how my children get to and from school each day safely. There are transients in this town that can cause harm to my children, and my children should not be subjected to this, walking such a far distance. And then the other public comments that we that one did not get okay, hold on. Let me look. I don't have it in mind. Today. Okay, let me look. Here it is, sorry. We have another non-agenda item, sorry, Ms. Anderson, from Michelle Anderson. Dear Superintendent and board members, my name is Michelle Anderson and I have 4 children attending schools in the FBUSD area. I am very concerned about the proposed vaccine mandate that all school children will be punished by the means of denying them attendance in public schools. The detriment that will be caused to our youth is immeasurable. We cannot allow this. Almost 2 years have gone by. We have waited, we have been patient, we have given Governor Newsom the benefits of doubt. Those days are no more. As families, we have been backed into a corner and Governor Newsom have inserted himself into the most precious part of our lives, our children. The proposed mandate COVID-19 vaccine is where we draw the line because it lacks data and is still in clinical trials. We, parents and guardians, have the right to choose what is best for our children. Our country is based on rights and laws. Mandate is a violation of the 10th Amendment in our Constitution. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. In the definition of liberty, the state of being free within society from oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on one's way of life, behavior, or political views. It is our intention to complete every necessary and required step to discontinue these grossly overreaching mandates that have been proposed by the governor. We are resolved in defending the freedom of not only our own generation, but the freedom of generations to follow. Collectively, we intend to stand united in protecting our children as well as our own unalienable rights. We call upon you to stand with us publicly, united in our resolve to defend our children's as well as our own right to choose.
Great, thank you. So are there any other public comments on non-agenda items?
I believe the last 2 comments that we have are connected to an agenda item. So,
Okay. So no one
not-
else in the room on a non-agenda item? Okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So the next item, thank you very much for your input. We appreciate the comments and you coming out on this rainy night, but we appreciate your time. So the next item on the agenda is the patriotic exercise, and it's Trustee Babcock will lead.
So I just want to read something that October is LGBTQ plus History Month, where each year the history and achievements of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and others are celebrated. This occasion began in 1994 when Rodney Wilson, and actually a Missouri high school teacher, believe that a month should be dedicated to the celebration of gay and lesbian history, and October has been chosen to coincide with other existing traditions and a full school month, such as Coming Out Day on October 11th. So as an ally, I wanted to recognize that October is LGBTQ History Month, and our FBUSD community should always have a safe space.
Great. Thank you for the patriotic exercise. And the next item on the agenda is acknowledgments. Superintendent Walker?
Yes. So we wanted to acknowledge that October is California School Bus Safety Month. The week of school administrator was October 10th through 16th. America Safe Schools Week was October 16th through 22nd. And Digital Citizenship Week, was October 17th through 23rd. And then we have a donation from the Mendocino Redwood Company. They donated $500 to the Fort Bragg Middle School Library.
Okay, and I just wanted to briefly acknowledge all the sites work with sports. High school had homecoming. There was parents' nights. There's parent clubs attending, all in person. I just want to thank everyone for making that happen. There was a lot of joy in our month of October and at school, and it takes a lot of work, and it's all at the site. So thank you very much for making that happen for our kids. And the next item on our agenda is communications. Did anyone receive any communications this month since our last meeting? I think the only thing, I think we all received the Expanded Learning Leadership Award. We received notification that Beth Pine received that award, which is pretty amazing, given it's not, she didn't apply for it. She was nominated and received it, so that's pretty special. So I want to congratulate Beth Pine. And I also saw on social media that the FFA had their first in-person event in Lake County, so I wanted to acknowledge that as well in the communication. If there are no other communications, the next item is public comment on agenda items. So if anyone would like to speak in person, you will go first with items that are on the agenda. So does anyone want to speak on agenda items? Is there anything, Renee?
No, I don't have any submitted items for the agenda.
Okay.
So I have 2 emails. Let me get them back up. Sorry. That were submitted to the board meeting email address. The first one is from Gina Balassi. Dear Becky Walker and board members, I wanted to reach out to all of you and express my heartfelt gratitude and thanks. It has been an adjustment getting back into a school routine. I was extremely nervous about sending my children back to the classroom and still have waves of anxiety. However, knowing that masks are mandated and the upcoming vaccine mandates are being put into place helps myself, along with many, feel comfortable sending off our children. My family is eagerly waiting for the under 12 vaccine to be approved, making our family fully vaccinated. I, along with many families, feel the need to show our support of these important safety measures to keep our schools open and safe. The next comment is from Katie Turner Carr. Dear School Board, I noticed that your agenda acknowledges many events this month, like October is California School Bus Safety Month, Week of School Administrator, etc. October is also very importantly LGBTQ plus History Month. I hope LGBTQ plus history is taught and acknowledged all the time, but especially so this month. I also wanted to thank admin and the board for the COVID dashboard that you added to the FBUSD site. On the topic of masking, it is a huge comfort to know that our school sites and school admin are strictly enforcing masking on campus. Thank you for making it possible for our students to safely attend school. I appreciate that every morning when I drop my student at the middle school, that Mrs. Vieira and Mr. Chimolino are out in front getting students and handing out masks to those that need one. While I look forward to the time it is safe for us to be unmasked again, for now, thank you for keeping the community safe. Lastly, I see that you are discussing if public comment via email is still necessary. I hope you will consider keeping this option so that busy parents can still participate in the board meetings. It seems to me there has been more engagement since parents have been able to participate in this way. I personally very much appreciate that I can read the agenda and send in my comment because weeknights at 6 p.m. are a hard time to take away from my family time. I can then watch the recorded meeting a bit later. And even though we can safely mask in the room for the board meeting, I do appreciate being able to participate from the safety and comfort of home. I hope you will continue to allow us to participate in this way. Truly, Katie Turner Carr. And then there are no other public comments at board meeting at fbusd.us.
Okay. And so this will be the last call for any public comment for agenda items. Okay, thank you. So the first report is our student representative, Joe Erickson.
All right, thank you. I've got, starting off with a report from Redwood Elementary. I've got, things are going well at Redwood. Students are busy learning, playing, and getting back in the routines of school. Everyone is working hard to support student learning and reestablishing community at the site. They are looking forward to a costume day on Friday, October 29th, when students are encouraged to dress as their favorite book character or in a costume of their choice. Families are encouraged to participate in the Parents Club, which helps raise funds, and the next meeting for that is November 9th. And for Dana Gray, we've got next week is Red Ribbon Week, which is the nation's largest and longest running drug use prevention program. And there are dress up days. We've got the theme Red Ribbon Kickoff Day, where the students will wear red. We've got Drug Free Head to Toe, which is Silly Hair and Socks Day. Team Up Against Drugs, which is like Sports Teams Day. Too Bright for Drugs, where they wear neon. And Our School is Drug Free, which is a Red Ribbon Costume Day. And they will be having classroom speaker presentations from the Fort Bragg Police Department and the United States Coast Guard. The Dana Gray Parents Club will be decorating the school, counting student and classroom participation to win classroom celebrations at the end of the week. Also, classrooms and teachers will be decorating their classroom doors to support this year's Red Ribbon theme, Drug Free Looks Like Me. At the middle school, Mr. Chimolino just wished for me to briefly mention that volleyball is going really well and basketball will be starting in the next few weeks. And from the high school, fall sports are being finished up even during COVID, and all of the requirements, our teams all participated and had a great season. Soccer, football, and cheer have a few games left. Volleyball finished up second in the league and is waiting to see where they end up for playoffs. Our counselors had a college information night a few weeks ago and a financial aid night last week. They're working hard to get all of our seniors' college applications finished and submitted. On Tuesday, the college and career specialist, Eve Yeomans, took 40 high school students to Mendocino College for a college day. I personally went to that, and it was great. And yesterday, our FFA took first place in the opening and closing speaking contest in Lakeport. Congrats, FFA. And on the 29th of this month, Link Crew is hosting Trunk or Treat, and there is a costume contest. And to remember, there is no school on November 1st for students. And I did not receive a report from Noyo High School.
Well done. Okay, thank you very much for your report.
Thank you.
And I noticed next month you are assigned patriotic exercise if you'd like.
Yeah.
And so just your idea, just email to Superintendent Walker and CC me, and that's how the procedure is.
All right.
So that'd be great.
Sounds good.
Yeah, thank you. And our next item on the agenda is Superintendent Report. California Dashboard Priorities is the first.
So I sent the dashboard priorities. We are required to submit those by October 15th. They were submitted, and so I gave you a copy of everything that we have done. We haven't submitted this in a couple of years because of COVID, so we're back on track to submit those, and thank you, Kim Morgan, for reminding me. I thought this was on hold again for this year. So in any case, the priorities were submitted appropriately. Any questions for me?
Do you know when they'll update the dashboard?
The dashboard will probably be updated late November, early December. That's what they always tell us. In truth, if it happens in January, I wouldn't be surprised. So the next thing on my report is the paper tutoring services. We are just getting this started. It's an exciting service that we're able to provide. Students have the ability to get online tutoring 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The district we're using some of our COVID relief funds to fund this for the next 3 years. Students can get direct help in any of their subjects in English, Spanish, French, or Mandarin. So if they wanted to get crazy, they could. It's all fully recorded, so for the safety of our kids. They cannot access a tutor on like a live phone call or a video chat. So everything is recorded 100% of the time. Students can submit their essays, and then a tutor will review the essay and give them suggestions. The premise of the online tutoring is a Socratic seminar foundation, so that they're not giving kids answers, they're leading them to the point. So we're excited to have that. The high school and middle school will do fabulous activities within the next month to roll this out with a little bit more fanfare. But it just started and we have 1,000 licenses, so we're excited about that. Any questions?
So each site, just the students maybe know about it, because I don't think families know about the.
We're going to be doing, so.
Well, up and coming, so.
It's up and coming.
Starting at the ground, and then families will
We
know
started
that's
with
another.
the kids, and we'll
Okay.
be doing, like I said, we just got it up and running. We'll be doing a rollout with families, a little bit more messaging, a little bit more PR with it in the next
Great.
couple of weeks.
Great, because I think it really will be helpful for families to have another tool to try to help with homework and learning concepts. So thank you for looking into that.
Thank you for sending it. And then next, Ms. Holes is going to share her screen with you. We wanted to just give some campus highlights of what's been going on in Fort Bragg Unified and some things that maybe some of you may not have been able to see.
This is very, very short. Just a few updates, just by photograph of the preschool and some of the other campuses, all decked out for Halloween. I thought this was an interesting picture of the lunch rollout daily.
So this is breakfast in the classroom.
Yeah.
These are the breakfast in the classroom carts that go out. Our wonderful nutrition services staff at Redwood and Dana Gray all have these carts, and each classroom has a cart. And before it goes out in the morning, if you can imagine the work to make sure that the right number of milks, the right number of the grains and the fruit are all in there. And so they are insulated like ice chests. So that way the milk stays cold.
Yeah. We have our lovely staff and one of our decorated classrooms with all the sunflowers. This room is one of the reading rooms, and then over at Dana Gray, we had some updates to the library. We didn't have any before and after pictures, so we just have the after picture with Chris Price and the newly remodeled spaces in the library.
And so I just want to call attention to the Dana Gray Library, because I don't know if any of you remember, but there was that whole area of storage. And so that's been moved out to create more space in the library. And I thought they did a really great job.
They did. This picture is Chris standing in that space. This is a particularly popular classroom, just with the dim lighting and the calming corner. The middle school library has a new library clerk who's doing a lot of decorating and a lot of outreach stuff. And then this is the entryway at the middle school. It's a graveyard of all bad things. I think social media is in there, drama, gossip. Also some activities in the library. The high school, the photos for the high school and the Cove Cafe are going to have to come at a later time. They were not able to get those over to me because of the rain. So this is all we have for now.
Great, thank you so much. It's another field trip this month, so thank you. So that completes superintendent report, and we're moving on to Three Rivers Charter School. We have Kimberly Morgan, the director of Three Rivers Charter School. Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hear me okay? Thank you for having me. This is my first year as director, and what a person. It's so delightful to have the students back on campus. And my brave and dedicated staff is just rocking it and making it happen. We had our School Spirit Week last week with dress-up days each day and a field day and games out in the field. And it was just such a joy to see everybody together in our school community, outdoors, masked, safe, but together. And so we're rebuilding. So I'll be here this month in November and again in February and May to give you updates. And we'll start with our enrollment summary and demographics. This year we have 85 students enrolled. We'd prefer it to be in the high 90s. We had a lot of middle school students leave and families that preferred to homeschool on their own with the pandemic. So we're hoping next year, and as things evolve, that we'll get our full enrollment back. So here's a breakdown by grade level, number of students, and number of students on the waiting list. Our big gap is in the 7th and 8th grade class, and those 2 people on the waiting list said no thanks for this year. So I know we always show how many students have transferred from Fort Bragg to Three Rivers, and from Three Rivers to Fort Bragg, and it's 17 both ways this year, which is kind of interesting. We also had 19 students come in from elsewhere, so that's 36 students of our 85 that were not our students last year, which is interesting when we look at the academic data that we're not responsible for those we couldn't control last year. But moving forward, we have most of our students living in Fort Bragg Unified District and some in Mendale. We have 9 students on full-time independent study. So we have developed our own independent study program. We've had to evolve what we've done for years to meet the needs of AB 130 and AB 167. And it's been a challenge. We've created new documentation and new ways to do it, but we are doing it and fulfilling the requirements to serve our independent study families. We'll go on to ethnicity data. One of the pieces of our memorandum of understanding has been to have our demographics closer meet the districts, the Fort Bragg Unifieds. And so this year our Hispanic Latino population is at 38%, and I believe Fort Bragg is around 44. So in our last charter renewal, we showed that we were reaching those goals, and it looks like we still continue to do so. 76% of our students are SEDs, socioeconomically disadvantaged. So this is our free and reduced lunch number. We have a higher number of IEP students than we have had in the past. We're at 11 and 2 with 504 plans. If anyone has any questions or comments as I go, feel free.
Okay, thank you.
We use an assessment called the MAP. That's Northwest Evaluation Association creates it. It's the measures of academic progress. So we're seeing that this is going to be really important this year, as the last couple of years we haven't fully done the CASP. We missed 1 year and many people took it from home last year. So I'm going to show you our initial data from the students took it in the fall. They'll take it again in the winter and definitely again in the spring, and so we can see their progress over the years. So here is our math data, which shows that math is not very strong right now. If you just look at the colors, the red is low, all the way to blue is high, and our first and second graders have not taken the math test quite yet. They will do it later this fall as they get more comfortable with their Chromebooks. It's an online-based assessment. And we're still working on capturing our independent study students to get them in to take the assessment. So the numbers don't match 85 quite yet. Language arts, a little bit better. Again, this is just our baseline data, so I'm hoping that next time I come to report, I can show you some improvement. And there's a language arts reading piece, and then the next slide, there's another section for language usage. So those are a little stronger than math, but this helps us figure out how to move forward. Next slide. So our staff overview, we have 4 teachers in our 4 classes. We've hired 2 new teachers, one to take my place. I taught first and second for 9 years. So we've hired Maria Gibson, a new first and second grade teacher, and Michael Lang for the 7th and 8th grade class. We have a classroom aide in each of the classrooms and some excellent support staff. Reading specialist who is doing a reading intervention program. We have a counselor and helpful adult on campus that the students have access to. An academic support person that pushes into the classes right now. We have a music instructor and our student program specialist who is supporting me with admin tasks in the morning. She's running a homework club. She's doing a sports program. She compiled the NWA data and made that beautiful slide you saw. So I have lots of support, which is great. Next slide. After school, here's our program, sorry. The Reading Intervention Program, she's serving about 15 students in small group and individual reading intervention support for students that we identify are below grade level. Our counselor is available to all the students. We're serving a breakfast this year, a free breakfast daily to all students in the tent. We have a tent set up, a 20 by 20 tent with our picnic tables, and so breakfast is from 8 to 8:20 for anyone who wants it, and then it's available at their snack recess as well for those who missed it before school. And we serve about 30 students a day are coming for the breakfast. And we're able to get our music program up and running this year. There is piano, horns, which is after school in the tent outside, drum and guitar, and that's working. We're happy to have that back. It was a missing piece. After school, our next slide, we have a homework club that's free for all students Monday through Thursday for an hour after school. And then our after school program that has a small fee with a snack provided for parents that work and definitely need that till 5 every day, Monday through Thursday. And then this year we rolled out our after school sports program and it's free. There'll be 4 sports that kind of rotate. We're just finishing up a volleyball section that's been really popular. It's once a week for the younger kids and twice a week for the older kids. Our campus COVID update. We've had 5 cases on campus so far, 2 siblings, no evidence of it spreading at school. But we've continued with our COVID safety measures, much as you all have. And I'll round it up there. One highlight is that we are doing weekly surveillance testing for all the students and staff, as well as symptomatic testing and when we need to with the Binex now. Here is our budget. This does not reflect the 85 student enrollment, so when we see the first interim, that will be reflected there, but we do have a surplus, and this surplus will be not as large once the actual enrollment numbers are reflected in the budget. Any questions so far? One more slide. We have no outstanding legal issues. We are fully bound, and I've sent in your packet is our insurance coverage information. No suspensions and expulsions. We are currently working with Mendocino College, or we're working to develop a proposal for the college for us to help improve the facilities in exchange for a longer term lease. Currently our lease ends June 30th, 2022. So that's a project our facilities team of the board is working on. And one other thing I forgot to put on here is that we were slated for our next renewal to be June 2023, and with AB 130, they've extended charter renewals out 2 years. So that means that the next time that we'll be up for a renewal will be June 2025. Interesting fact. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions?
So just to clarify your last statement, so you won't have to come as a full renewal to us until 25. So did we get documentation on that?
I haven't seen that, so
Yeah.
this is news to me. I mean, I
Yeah.
have no reason to not believe
Right.
him.
I was just wondering if we're notified.
But we'll confirm everything with the county and make sure that
We're all on the same page.
We're all on the same page.
Perfect.
The legislation was AB 130 that passed that.
Okay.
130, okay. Thank
Yeah.
you.
But if you want to augment how we report to each other or anything, we have that dialogue, make it happen.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Three Rivers has done a good job on recovering from, just recovering from a couple of years ago, and really, they've done everything that we've asked them to do in our MOU, so I really appreciate all the effort that's been focused on this, and it's been nice working with Kim as well. It's sad to see Roger go, but Kim is a wonderful replacement.
I've had a lot of support from Becky and Carolyn Carini. It's been
Great.
I feel very supported in this interesting, challenging year. So unless you have any other questions, thank you.
So is, sorry, nice to see you.
Yes,
Hi,
Trustee
Scott.
Snyder?
So is staying at the college the most likely scenario at this point?
That's what we're hoping for, yes.
And the only question I had is the new term is accelerated learning. So are you hiring more staff to help with this accelerated learning, or have you actually incurred some expense for new curriculum to help with that? Like, is your reading intervention using the same program you've been using, or is it new curriculum?
She's using the same, and we do have our one push-in support staff, and I'm looking into hiring another tutor person. We had one other last year that has left, so we'll be looking into that, yes.
Great, thank you.
And also into a summer learning program
Oh,
and
that's
what that
exciting.
could look like.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for coming to our meeting and giving us an update.
My pleasure.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
everyone.
Kim.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item on our agenda is 8.4. Do we have a California School Employees Association report?
No, we do not.
Okay, and the next item is the Fort Bragg District Teachers Association. Do we have a report for their members?
No report.
Okay, thank you. And our next item on the agenda is approval of agenda consent items. So the consent calendar items are provided for agenda, the consent calendar is provided for agenda items that are routine or non-controversial. Items on the consent agenda are passed in one motion without discussion. Any items may be pulled from the consent agenda by the board and moved to action when approving the agenda. So Vice President Makala, if you could read the agenda consent items.
Okay, we have 9.1 warrants, 9.2 the minutes from the September 9th, 2021 regular meeting, and the September 29th, 2021, special meeting. Item 9.3 personnel action report, 9.4 contracts, and 9.5 the Williams Uniform Complaint Quarterly Report 2021-22 first quarter.
So is there anything to move or pull in the consent? And if there is not, may I have a motion
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
and a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes, okay. Seeing no objection, so moved. The approval of the agenda, consent items. So we are to our board action items. So it's 6:50. Is everyone doing okay? We can proceed? Okay. The first item is the 2022-23 academic calendar.
So we provided you two proposals at the last, in the September meeting to review for our calendar for the 2022-23 school year. And after reviewing both those proposals, there was only one difference between the two proposals. One had a snow day built in and the other did not have a snow day built in. To build in the snow day would mean that we would have to start school on a Tuesday, or excuse me, start school on a Tuesday instead of the Wednesday. And after reviewing both proposals, it didn't make sense to have the snow days. So the calendar does work beautifully without the snow day, and we will just have to roll the dice and hope that we don't have to use the snow day. So with that, the proposal before you is, the first proposal that we had was to begin school in August of 2022 on August 17th, and then graduation would commence on, the last day of school would be June 9th. That would give us all the days that we need for our bargaining agreements, and it also continues to give us November 1st off for a professional development day. And it's not off. The students are off.
So I think we, those last 2 months, especially the month prior, we talked about some different scenarios which wouldn't work out due to contract language. And there was an October break that got corrected in here.
It was April. It
Or
was
Ap-
spring
April.
break.
Okay, sorry.
So we fixed that,
Fix that, okay.
and it's still not fixed. Oh, no, I fixed spring break,
We're
sorry.
good? Okay. Just want to make sure that's
Yes,
accurate.
sorry.
And I
Yes.
think that we all agreed that starting a Wednesday was difficult at first to put our brain around, but it really does work for staff for those last minute questions. You've got a couple business days before kids come on campus. So I think everyone appreciates the start on Wednesday. And even though it's only one day different, it is nice for those reasons to help
And-
the ease of startup.
And the October break, while it's not noted in the notes, it is slated to be October 13th and October 14th. It's noted there with a B.
Okay. So do we have any clarifying questions from the board or anyone?
And there is no public comment.
Okay, so seeing no inquiries, may we have roll call?
Well, someone needs to make a
Oh,
motion.
I'm sorry, yeah, I'm trying to move on here.
That's okay.
Thank you.
I move we approve item 10.1.
Thank you.
22-23 academic calendar.
In a second?
I'll second.
Very good. Now may we have roll call, Renee? Thank you.
We may. Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Makala?
Yes.
President Paoli?
Yes,
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
And Trustee Mattson is absent. The motion carries.
thank you. Yeah, very uncontroversial. I wanted to just approve it. Thank you. The next item on the agenda for action is the Sr3 Expenditure Plan. And I believe,
It says both Wendy and I, but I'm going to defer to Wendy Boyce.
okay, thank you.
You may need to move your,
Okay, there we go. So we have had discussed some time ago the things that we were thinking about possibly doing with this largest piece of the funding, the art money. And then they decided that it needed a plan. So this is a formalization of some of the things we had talked about doing before. We're looking at replacing the windows at Redwood to provide better ventilation that's more compatible with the way the rooms are situated. Building the large shade structures at all of the sites that will allow students to eat outside and be more spaced out right now. That's one of the biggest challenges we have, is keeping the kids socially distanced while they're eating, because they're clearly unmasked while they're doing that. This will also provide an area where actually additional outdoor classroom space could be. Teachers could take kids outside to again, spread out to do certain types of activities. And then we are planning on, well, we will need to continue to upgrade our technology infrastructure and our Chromebooks. So a lot of them are sort of not timing out, but they're at the end of their useful lives. And it's clear we're going to continue to need to be able to do this and have the availability of online learning if needed, or for kids to use for independent study purposes, or even in the classroom. With a lot of the mitigations that we have are online programs and supports. So we need to be able to keep that equipment up to date and our infrastructure up to date for that. So that's mostly what in here, and some of those programs are listed in here. The paper education, and again, that's another one where the kids have access 24/7 to a live tutor, so they have to be able to have, I feel like I'm getting feedback. They have to be able to have equipment that meets the needs of these programs. The Edgenuity is another program that we have that provides multiple subject areas for support and credit recovery. And then we are also planning on continuing the summer program we had last year. We felt that was very beneficial to the students and actually to the staff to be able to kind of get back into the swing of things and to help students that need additional interventions in the summer. And so we will be able to do that for an extra summer, more than we were thinking before with the constraints of the funds we had. So these funds will allow us to continue that program for at least another year. Let's see. And then there's just a little bit of a narrative on some of the other pieces that we've already talked about down below. And then this will be available on our website. It will be translated. I was hoping that would be done by this evening, but it didn't come through. By the time we got it to them, they needed a little more time to translate it. So it will be available in both English and Spanish on our website for people to look at.
Okay. So do we have any board members with clarifying questions?
I have a question just about the Edgenuity. Is that similar to Acellus, the same type of thing?
It is. It's an online platform for courses.
Does it just have more to offer? Or?
It has a little bit more. We were able to get a 3-year contract for it. It gives us a little bit more flexibility with the number of kids that we could put on it. It's not about, we were able to get the entire high school and alt ed on it. So it's no longer just this many seats.
Oh,
and
great.
there's a little bit more flexibility with the number of courses that are offered and how components of the class could be pulled. So that was the other reason why we had gone to it. We're using COVID money for 3 years. In 3 years, we should have a good, solid foundation to know if it's going to work or not. Every time you go into a contract with a new vendor, 10 more pop up. So we're going to give this one a good try. Our new independent study teacher is becoming the pro on it, and so we're doing the train the trainers kind of thing. So we should have good data on Edgenuity. I would say by March we'll have a good understanding if it's going to work for us. So
Is that what the kids could do Mandarin through?
no, that's paper.
Oh, that's through paper.
Paper.
Okay.
They could do their tutoring in Mandarin if they so choose.
That's their
Amazing.
native, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Are there any other questions from the board? I was just curious for this pot of money, have we expended it all out in this form, or this is just what we're spending thus far for this?
This is the
SR3?
entire pot represented
Okay, it
here.
represents all
of
the state and federal dollars? Or
The
just
ARC money,
Just the ARC?
yes.
Yeah.
The ARC SR3.
American Rescue
Recovery
Recovery.
Plan, SR3 pot
Okay.
of money. Yeah.
Yeah, because I should have brought down the schematic of all the different pots
Right,
of money.
when there was the requirement that a portion of it be used for learning loss mitigations, and that's where the paper and the Edgenuity come in.
Yeah, it
support
totally
that.
seems appropriate for the funds. I was just wondering if there's remainder that we have to
Nope.
discuss, or that this is all, because it says we've had meaningful consultation with stakeholders and provided public input, which I think we did with all the.
We've
with-
been doing this for a while. We started having
with
this
the
discussion
LCAP.
back in June.
Yep.
We folded it into our LCAP discussions, and then we had specific online Google meetings just for this.
Right.
So this has been ongoing.
And then this gets, well, the only reason why I'm asking is because there was an article from EdSource saying that now the feds are saying, I don't know, if there needs to be more oversight. And so I'm just wondering if we've obviously spent the money appropriately, so I'm not worried about that. But there was some talk about more at the state level overseeing the funds, and just want to make sure that we've.
So the two capital projects had to be approved prior to us deciding to move forward with them. So we submitted that information to the state, and they said, yes, this does fit into within the parameters. And I think some of what they're talking about there is some of the reporting, the quarterly reporting on them is a little vague in what it's asking for. I have been keeping very detailed records in, with the fear that we're going to get to the end of it and they're going to say, okay, in 15 days you have to, So if they do start digging down a little deeper into it, I have no concerns about
Great, thank you.
what we're doing.
Thank you. Any other board members?
So is this the last time we'll be discussing these funds, do you think?
Probably not. Because there's one pot that we don't have a resource code for. We don't know how much it is. We don't know anything about it yet. So there's another one out there that's still, yet to come. I think the rest of them have been through their processes, and we're just moving forward with what we're doing.
Okay. I only ask because not that we can do anything about it. I still think the mental health of the kids, because of all this, I mean, there's still a lot unknown, and we're still going to be dealing with this for a long time. And
We have that built into the other pots for expanded numbers of hours in addition to what we had contracted before, almost double, actually. So I feel like we are doing a lot to address that. We're using quite a bit of different pots because they're all permit that in them.
So, and one of the reasons we purchased Edgenuity as well is because there's a social emotional learning component specific for high schools. And it was the best SEL program our counselors could find, and they really did a lot of research. So when we went with Edgenuity, they rolled in that component into that 3-year agreement. One of the other things that we're doing is that we have accounted for some of this over the next 2 or 3 years. So some of the mental health components that we have, we've incorporated them for future years.
Great.
So that's why you're seeing some of the things like the extended counseling services that we have right now. And it's really through licensed marriage family therapists. The hard part is trying to connect the dots to get kids to accept help and for families to accept the help. That's really the biggest barrier right now, and trying to find time to get kids to accept that help. I will tell you that probably the number one best thing that's happened for our students' mental health is athletics. They're out there, they're moving, they're competing. There's not one kid or one family who said, no, we're not going to test, because it is so important. They are doing amazing things, just being out there running, jumping in the fresh air. They're not masked because they're outside. Volleyball we have to deal with, and I'm worried about basketball because I don't know how basketball players are going to keep this on. I don't know how that's going to happen. So we're addressing it. And just so that you know, for Redwood, Dana Gray, and middle school, we purchased Second Step, which is a social emotional learning curriculum. And I think we did it for 3 years or 5 years. 3?
One was 5 and something else we did was 3, but I get it mixed up.
Okay. So, but we've been purchasing multiple years and using this funding so that it gives us time to keep it, and it's not just a one-stop shop. So everything that we've been doing, we've been really trying to look out to the long term. I'm thrilled that we can use this money for the windows because we knew that we weren't going to be able to do it with our bond money. I'm thrilled that we're getting the shade structures. We've been looking for shade structures for decades, but how do you come up with a random $1 million to get it done? So the silver lining with COVID is that we've been able to really focus in on some long-term projects. We have done very little with just getting this for a year. Even the summer school program, we saw wonderful things at summer school this summer. It was lovely to get children back in the room and to have our teachers there with them. We're going to do it again. Summer school last year cost us
A little over 300,000.
So that's why you see in here that it's in there again for the next 2 years, because there was huge benefit to that. So what I'm proud of is that everything that we're doing has multiple years. It's not a one and done.
Great.
And we're really focusing in on the targeted activities that we hope gives us the biggest bang for our buck.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that, because that is a blessing, like you said, to have funds to be able to address and support families and kids.
And I think the challenge is, like you said, is going to be letting people know they're out there and that they're easy to access. And I don't know if there's some marketing materials, brochures, or something that as these programs get developed or are implemented, that kids and parents can better understand that there are resources out there. Because I know a lot of people are struggling, trying to adapt to this new normal that is still changing as we speak. So it'll just be good once people understand that they're available and start using them.
Great. So are there other questions? Otherwise, we will ask if there's any public comment. And
There is no public comment.
so if there's no other questions, may I have a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve item 10.2, the Sr3 Expenditure Plan.
In a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. And if there's no further discussion, roll call, please.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
President Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Makla,
Yes.
Trustee Babcock,
Yes.
and Trustee Mattson is absent. Motion carries.
And I just want to make a correction. Our student representative actually gets a vote on some of these, correct?
If she'd like to, as a let's see, it doesn't count in if it was a tiebreaker or anything, but you definitely can support, and you actually are asked first
Okay.
for the provisional vote.
Joe Erickson, student representative.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Put her on the spot.
So we'll figure out how to put that in the minutes. 4-0 plus 1.
And Joe, I'm sorry I missed it on the calendar. You probably had many things to say about the calendar, or maybe not. So I apologize for that. I just realized it as we were doing this.
So the next item on the board action is 10.3, the contract for California Environmental Quality Act compliance, which is also known as CEQA, and other environmental consulting services.
So because the Alt-Ed campus project is new construction, not just additional or, adding to a new campus, it requires a CEQA review at some level. It's not as in-depth as some CEQA reviews we're used to hearing about in the city and other projects. But there is a requirement for it. We sent proposals to 4 different firms and received a response only from one. So we're recommending that you award the contract for the CEQA review to Rincon Consultants.
Okay. So are there any clarifying questions from board members or the student rep, Joe?
Have you had any experience with this firm, or any red
Our
flags?
construction
that you've-
manager has worked with them before.
Okay.
And
You guys
feels
feel good about, I
confident,
know we only got
yes.
one response, but
Right.
it's good about not
Right.
having to go out again.
Well, actually,
for
all
another-
4 were people that he had had experience with in the past and knew them to be reputable and compliant, so we weren't concerned with who we ended up with, but we did only get one response. I think a lot of schools are doing similar kinds of projects right now. That's why it's been difficult to get some responses for some of these pieces.
And it looks like Mendocino Unified's using this firm as well.
Mhm.
So they're here in town already, I guess.
Right.
Does anyone have any other questions?
No, I'd just like to take this as my moment to leave.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining, and we will see.
Sorry, Joe, we forgot about that too. How you doing, Joe? Welcome aboard.
Yeah, you're welcome to depart at any moment, and thank you very much for your time tonight and your report. So the only question I had is on page, let's see, it's on 27. I don't know if that's the actual page of the document. It's not, it's 22. There's an optional task. Do we know if we have to do the optional task, phase environmental site assessment, and the optional Assembly Bill 52 assistance?
Hold on, let me get there. It's page what?
It's, when you look on the screen, it's 27 out of 51.
And it's page 22 of the document, if you look
Yeah,
in
I don't
their
know how
footer.
you're looking at it. Yeah.
3.2.1 and 3.2.2.
Just don't know if we have to request that, or it's really truly optional.
I think it's optional depending on whether we believe any of those things are an issue.
Okay.
And I don't believe we do.
We have an oil,
And
yeah, it's
then-
like a site contamination. I don't think anything's
Right.
been over there. And then I didn't know about the Native American tribal.
And again, I
Contract.
think that will come up if research indicates that it is
And that's,
an issue.
okay.
So those are a couple of things that have come up in other projects in the past where they feel like they need to mention, we could come across this, so just be prepared.
But that,
So-
they'll determine that, like, oh,
Yes.
I recommend this option because
Right.
of this.
If they run
Okay.
into something.
That's why we're hiring the experts.
Yes. Well, and we're fortunate because it's this section
Open.
of land that we've owned, that the district has owned, and, we had to remove the trees because they were dying. So there hasn't been anything on that, nor has there been a reason to suspect any kind of toxic dumping. So
Right.
I think we're fortunate on the location that's been chosen.
That's very true. Okay. So if there's no other questions, do we have public comment?
There's no public comment.
Otherwise, may I have a motion?
I'll move to approve item 10.3, the contract for California Environmental Quality Act compliance, CEQA, and other environmental consulting services.
And a second?
I'll second.
Okay. And if there's no further discussion, roll call, please.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Makla?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
And President Paoli?
Yes.
And Trustee Mattson is absent. Motion carries.
Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is 10.4, the Local Control and Accountability Plan Update and Budget Overview for Parents.
So the Mendocino County Office of Education reviewed our LCAP, and there were a few things that they wanted included on it in some of the metrics. They were happy with the plan, but we had to make sure that all of the priorities on the dashboard were included in our LCAP. And I'm glad that they looked over it because I had forgotten to include some of the CTE data. And I have it on our data sheet, but for some reason it just got missed. And I think I was waiting for the June results from CTE from our graduation, and so I'm glad they caught it. So that's now in there. They wanted some of the other priorities that were listed, like the middle school dropout rates, which I found interesting because there's only one place that I can find it on the CDE website, and the last time that information had been included was in 2017. So I included it because they told me to include it. So with that, all of our priorities are now appropriately placed in our LCAP. They're all addressed in our metrics. So this was returned back to MCOE. They gave us a thank you, and then Wendy included the budget overview as well.
And there were a couple of numbers that changed because by the time this was completed and then we completed the budget, there were some numbers that ended up having to be changed in here to match that. And so we brought them all together so that they all match.
Okay. So just to clarify, you said CDE, not CTE data, right?
No, CTE.
Oh, CTE
so
data.
career
Okay.
technical education
Okay.
data. I had actually I forgot to put it in,
Okay.
and I know that I was waiting for our graduation data, and so it really was my snafu. So it's in there now.
Okay, gotcha.
And
Yeah,
it was in
just-
our previous.
That's what I thought you said, but then I was trying to make sure.
No, it was in our
Yeah,
previous
okay.
LCAPs, career technical education.
Okay, very good. You probably got interrupted. You were just ready to put that in there. So are there any other questions from the board? Or public comment? Is there any public comment?
There's no public comment.
So if there's no other questions, a motion? May I have a motion, please?
I'll move to approve the LCAP update and budget overview for parents.
I'll second.
Great, thank you. And if there's no discussion, roll call, please.
Trustee Makla?
Yes.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
President Paoli?
Yes,
And Trustee Mattson is absent. The motion carries 4.
thank you. So the next item on the board action is 10.5, FBUSD masking guidance for 2021-22 school year.
So we keep this in the board agenda should there be any last minute changes because of the requirements that our agenda has to be posted 72 hours in advance. Right now, what we are hearing is that CDPH, which is the California Department of Public Health, will be holding a discussion on November 1st to discuss masking in the state of California. So I have nothing new in regards to masking for our school district. The CDPH guidance has not changed on that.
Okay. So are there any questions from the board? And so what we have been doing is just tabling this to the
Yes.
next month. And if something drastic were to occur, we could call a special meeting, but we are meeting again on the 18th and have a couple of special meetings. So we will keep everyone updated. And we'll just table this item again to next month on action item. And we want to make a formal motion on that or just tabling it?
You just table it.
Is sufficient? Okay. So moving on to the next item is 10.6, FBUSD 2021-22 COVID-19 district protocols.
So the protocols have changed a bit, and I realized today when I was updating this to get ready to give it to folks, one of the links on scenario 2 is not working, but the link on scenario 3 is the link that does work. And so I've copied and pasted that into scenario 2 because it just gives you what a close contact is. So I just wanted you to know that correction's been made, and it's also been made on the Spanish version. So I have worked with Martha Moreno Sanchez, who is our Mendocino County Public Health School Liaison. She works in direct concert with Dr. Corin. So anything that she says to me is coming from Dr. Corin, and anything I say to her goes to Dr. Corin. So she's our liaison, our go-between. When the CDPH guidance changed on modified quarantine for students and some of the testing requirements, it is now reflected in this document. So the most recent changes that happened on September 22nd, and then the more recent changes that happened on October 14th are all in here. So this has been a labor of love, if I could just say that out loud. It's taken a lot of time, but it is up with this. If you approve it, these are the updates. The main changes are on scenario number 2, which is the unvaccinated asymptomatic student. So let's just pretend that we have an unvaccinated student because they're in kindergarten. They can't get vaccinated. And so we have a kindergarten kiddo whose mama has COVID. That kiddo would be a close contact of their mom. So the the unvaccinated student is sent home for a 10-day quarantine, or that kiddo can take a PCR test or a Bionex Now test on day 5. Okay? So it ends the 10-day quarantine a little bit early, and then they can come back on day 7, and we're asking for a second negative Bionex test. So that they come in the morning, they get their second test, they're still negative. They were negative on day 5, they're negative on day 7, go to school. And they'll go to school on day 7. So they can take that test right at the district office, so there's no harm, no foul, no shame. You come up to the window, take the test, and we can give you the golden ticket to go back to school. So that was the major change there. And then the modified quarantine changed on number 4 with the unvaccinated student. It says modified quarantine may end with a negative Bionex Now test on day 7. So instead of having 10 days of a modified quarantine with no extracurriculars, you can return to extracurriculars on day 7 if you test negative with the Bionex test. So that's the other change that happened. And then other than that, everything else is pretty much the same. Those are the main changes in this document.
Well, thank you for doing the work, because I think that the PCR test was very tricky for families to time it right for it to work for them in their favor, especially if they didn't have any symptoms, to be able to return to school sooner. So that's a huge, that's the whole point of the modified, what is it called? The modified quarantines, to have them in school with masking.
I'm sorry, I forgot to say, and I apologize. The last 2 pages in this document is the English and Spanish version of recommended guidelines for excluding children from school due to illness. So we are, with your approval, this will get sent out to parents tomorrow, but this kind of takes you through the quick part of what happens when my kiddo's sick, so that parents can determine how they want to handle it. And then we updated the guidance on when is a child too sick to attend school. We had sent this to the pediatric group, and originally a fever over 99.6 was what our old guidance was. And the pediatric group, the doctors actually called us and said, "Becky, that's not a fever." And I said, "Okay, well, what number do you want it to be?" And they said, "We want it to be 100.4. That's a fever." And we said,
Wow.
"Okay." So that's why that changed. And if the doctor is telling me that's what they
Yeah.
want, then we're going to say, okay. So there was some discussion with it. Some of our health aides wanted to know, well, where did that number come from? That's coming from the Mendocino Coast Clinic's pediatric group. So with that, those 2 pages, if this is approved tonight, this and the protocols will go out to families tomorrow.
And so that's reducing the, is it?
So what it
the
does.
3 days of going the 2 weeks every day, getting sent home because your nose is running.
Right. So what we've noticed is that kids are coming together, and they're coming together outside of school. We're coming together. We're coming back to having people over for dinner and hanging out. And so colds are being shared. And we will tell you just from what we're seeing at the district office, people are coming in highly symptomatic. There's lots of colds because they're testing negative. And I have to tell you that the Binax tests are pretty spot on. So how do we allow kids to not wait 10 days, right? Because if their symptoms have significantly reduced, they would come back. And the other hard part is we have to do that same courtesy for our staff. Our staff can't use their sick days to wait for a cough to end. I mean, I don't know about you, but sometimes I'll get a cold and the cough will linger for 3 weeks. And I had that experience with my own son. His runny nose lingered for 2 weeks. I kept him home. There aren't very many families who can afford to do that. So we wanted to be able to say, okay, let's have some forward thinking. Let's go back to pre-COVID times. What would we do? Okay, this is what we would do. So now we add in the COVID conditions with, if your kid is sick, let's do an antigen test. If it's negative, go home for 2 days. If the symptoms have significantly reduced, come back on that 3rd day. And if you're still negative and they feel like they can go back to school, go to school. So that's why these 2 documents will come together. So that's what you have before you, the updated protocols, and then our guidance for illness.
Well, and at least everybody wearing a mask will help stop spreading the common cold around so badly, I hope. And the flu, which I'm sure will be coming.
So, yeah, the chart is super complicated, but I do understand that you're getting acclimated with it, and I just hope one day we'll have it be not so complicated. But
Well,
I
and-
do, yeah.
And just so everybody knows, I don't sit around and write this stuff up. This was really done in partnership with public health and being on the phone and making sure that everything we're doing met their approval. What's difficult is that out of all of these protocols, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, I probably know them the best, but every time a principal calls me, we go through it together. And today, Mrs. Alexander called me and I said, well, let's look. And there are different things going on. We were trying to determine close contact as a 48 hours, as a 24 hours, so we went right to the protocols, we clicked the link, 24 hours, that solved the problem, off we go. But public health wants us to notify families if a COVID positive person was on campus within 48 hours. So that's one of those nuances. So you learn something new every time we dig into the protocols. They're never, ever the same because every situation is different.
Unique. Yeah. Well, I definitely thank you for, I don't know what triggered the need, but to have it reduced from a child that's healthy, waiting for 2 weeks to come back to school. And so you're basically, with the testing, you're eliminating that it is COVID.
And we're eliminating that short-term independent study contract.
Exactly. Well, there's that bolster of that as well. So I appreciate the hard work that you're collaborating with public health and the
thank you
local
to
peds.
Martha Moreno Sanchez, who is just a rock star who's been helping us.
Getting all the calls. Are there any other questions from the board? Or public comment?
There is no public comment.
Okay. So if there's no, may I have a motion for this action item?
I'll move to approve the current, or the updated FBUSD 21-22 COVID district protocols.
In a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Trustee Makla,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
And President Paoli?
Yes.
And Trustee Mattson is absent. Motion carries.
Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is information and discussion. And are we doing okay at 7:30 to
I
proceed?
say we keep going.
Keep going. Okay, very good. So 11.1 is the teleconferencing virtual meeting requirement pursuant to AB 361.
So we are no longer holding virtual meetings. We're back in person and we're live. So the question before you is going to be, do you want to continue with the board meeting at FBUSD email to accept public comment? We no longer are required to have it because we have in-person meetings, but it's up to you if you want to keep it. So we wanted to bring this up as a discussion so that you could have the discussion and that the public could have time to provide input before we moved it to action. And we have it right now, so it's up,
So we need to check it.
you need
Soon,
to
soon,
check the
soon,
box. Do you
soon.
want to keep it or do you want to let it go? And let the discussion begin.
Right, and so the other, so this piece was given to Superintendent Walker from School and College Legal Services about the need to, and well, with the pandemic, we could do virtual meetings, and for a while there, we could, I mean, we didn't do it, but we could kind of go in and out, like it was convenient, you could kind of use it as a convenience thing. But it sounds like we're liking in person, and that this is not allowing us to use it as a convenience thing. So we have to actually do a resolution if we want to go back to full virtual meetings. We can't just decide 1 month to be virtual and the next month to be in person. So the public just needs to know that there is a process and we have to approve it as a board and have a resolution to go back to full virtual. So
And it has to be done every 30 days.
Exactly.
So you could do it every other month, but every
Right.
30 days, if you're in a virtual setting, you have to review that it's necessary. And the Brown Act rules come back into play, which means that if we're going to have a virtual meeting and I'm going to be attending that virtual meeting from my home, I'm going to have to publish and I'm going to have to post the agenda on my door and allow any public to come to my home to provide public comment.
Right.
So I am all for in-person meetings.
Right. So I just want to clarify that the board knows that, and the public knows, we're not just deciding to be mean and just doing in person or deciding to be mean and not doing virtual. There's a process, so it's not going to happen or change.
And I just want to say, if it's safe enough for our kids to be back in the classroom, it's safe enough for us to be in this board meeting room.
Right, I agree. And then the other part that I wanted, since we are in person, we don't have the resolution. In old times, we did hire someone to film for us, and it was never live, but now we're doing live. But except tonight, so normally we're live, but had a technical difficulty. So is that something that we're going to be able to continue to do to keep the public informed to have it live, or do we have to go back to the old recording and then posting it?
So that's a tricky question.
Okay.
We are blessed to have Nate Alexander, who is a rock star in his own right. He has kept us afloat. He sets up this room. We contract with him. So that's a personal contract. He is not an FBUSD employee. It's his gig. It's his business. The difficulty is if Nate decides to move to the Bahamas to, then we would have to figure out how to do this. There are other entities in our region who do this. Nate came from the ground up and was in the class and, helped purchase this equipment. So we would have to look at other options. Can we continue doing it? Sure, we can continue doing anything. We have to decide as a board what we're willing to do to keep it going. So right now, we're incredibly blessed. We have Nate Natera Productions, and he is keeping us afloat. We're going to hope and pray that Nate is with us for a long, long time.
Right.
But he's going to want to spread his wings at some point.
Right.
Well, and can the class take over again?
So I
or-
talked to Mr. Carr about that, about the class taking it over, and he's in a rebuilding year. He hasn't had
Right.
kids in the program. So I'll have more discussions with Mr. Carr about that, but I don't want to put that pressure on him right
Right.
now. Like I said, we're in a rebuilding year.
So
Well-
basically, Nate, you can't go anywhere yet.
Well, and why I'm asking that is because that will make potentially a difference on how long we keep the board email for, if it's not live, that's not going to be very useful for folks.
Right.
Because they won't really see what we're talking about. They can see what's on the agenda, and they can still have, at least we're reading it out for them. I always appreciate in person, so that it's in their tone and their voice. We can see their emotion, and you do a great job reading it, but I just, it's always better to have it coming from the source at the podium, but it makes a difference if we can't provide the live streaming. That would make a difference for me in deciding, or versus the recording. So anyway, I just wanted to start out with those
and I
questions.
will say, for like Katie Turner-Carr mentioned in her public comment, there is a convenience for families who can't come, but they want their voice to be heard. The only concern is when this is going to be tricky is when there's something really controversial and we say there's a 3-minute time limit and that it's 20 minutes per topic.
Mhm.
So if it's 20 minutes per topic,
Is it 10 and 10 or
right,
20 and 20?
and if people made the effort to get here, should they have the priority? And someone will say, well, I sent an email a week ago. So again, those are things that we'll have to come to when it gets tricky. And we've had an email that was more than 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tried to read quickly. But the hard part is that when we're reading an email, we should read it in the same tone, in the same speed, so that it's
Unbiased.
the email.
Yeah, it's unbiased. Well, that's why we have it on this as information and discussion, to have the discussion, because those are issues and we want to be ahead of it. We don't want to feel like the board email is getting higher priority and we're letting them, we're reading a 2-page letter versus you only get 3 minutes if you're in person.
Right.
So we just need to have, and we're going to have a workshop, which that's coming up, and we can talk about it a little bit further on protocols that would be in our handbook. And I think that we won't have the live streaming at those 2 next meetings because our wonderful Mr. Nate, I think, is going to be out of the area. So right now it looks like we're having regular meetings. We have that commitment we don't really know because we don't know his whole work schedule or his personal time. But I just wanted to get ahead of it so that we're consistent and not giving anyone more time or less time.
Right, although last fall, when we had the very controversial discussion about coming back to school for hybrid, and we did go, we extended, because it was really important. And I think when something's that important, that we should hear from as many people as possible. And I do love that this allows a better connection, I think, with our community. And maybe we could ask people to be concise in their emails or have some parameters in that way, but I do think it's a good way to keep connected.
Well, and maybe what we do is with emails, we limit it to a number of words, like
Mhm.
100 words or 150 words.
I think it says 300, which is crazy. Yeah.
Maybe we should.
But
That's an
if-
essay.
If we limit it.
390 words, it says that you can read in 3 minutes, which I don't know if that's possible. We can try that,
Not
but
with feelings.
that's according to the disclosures.
So we could do that. We can
Word
put an
count it.
automatic reply on the board meeting US that says, thank you for your email. It'll be read at the next board meeting. If this exceeds 390 words, your message may be truncated.
Okay.
I mean, we could do an automatic reply to do that so that everybody knows it.
Try to keep it at 390.
If that's the.
If that's the limit.
If that's
I don't know
the
who-
the number.
Random.
Yeah, I don't know who
But I think we should
decided.
test our reader.
Right, I think so.
Yeah,
Right.
because we don't want to, because there you go with the whole thing about if you read fast, then somebody might
Right.
construe that as being yours isn't valuable. And I just want to, I think if we just add this to, we can talk about it again, but I want to make sure that we make those decisions before the hot topic meeting happens.
Yes.
Right.
Because I just really want it to be consistent and fair. And I think we made a decision, a conscious decision, as Mary was saying, that we wanted everybody to be heard and whatnot. And I don't want something else to come up and then put, Diana having to kind of wing it.
Right.
Anyway, so I think we should, if we're going to keep it, we make
Be consistent.
be consistent, make some parameters, and do it before the issue happens instead
Right.
of trying to scramble at the last minute to figure it out.
And so we can definitely talk about this more at our board workshop that will be in person. We won't have live streaming on November 10th. But we can talk about procedures, and I can kind of see maybe calendaring this and letting it go to the end of the year and kind of assessing the situation, public health situation, to see if we keep that email. But then at that meeting, maybe we can talk about how to make sure that it's balanced, so that.
Well, I think you should definitely talk about it at the workshop, and then I think this should move to action on November 18th. So that
the next meeting,
it's a
regular
regular board meeting. Nate will be back by then. You see Nate saying yes. So it'll be up and running in live stream, and that way it's out in the open and it's very, very public.
Right.
So I would encourage you to talk about it at your workshop and what the parameters that you would like placed on this so that it's consistent. Renee can easily, like I said, do an automatic reply so that everyone who comes in gets the same message and gets the reminder about the 390 words or whatever word limit you put on
we
it.
can figure that out. I don't know where we got that. So that sounds like a plan. Does anyone else have any other suggestions? It'll go on to the agenda for the November 10th special meeting, and then we'll have it on action on November 18th at our next regular meeting, so that everyone's clear on if we're keeping that.
Well, it just seems like there's a couple different issues here. One is, do we continue to accept comment through the email? And then the other issue is, how do we then deal with those emails? I mean, I don't know, is it a law that we have to read the emails that come through?
No.
So I think that there's different ways to, I think the more avenues people have to provide comment, the better. So I think keeping the email is, to me, just kind of a no-brainer. But then deciding how they're communicated at a meeting is a different issue. Like, I'm not convinced that every email needs to be read. But
then they would be
Yeah.
sending it to us. If
Well-
they didn't want it read, then it could just be communication
Well,
directly
and
to
we'd-
us,
yeah.
which
And
is what
even-
they had before.
Even sometimes to Becky, people have said, I don't want this read at the
Right.
meeting.
Well, that's
pretty much
why
people
we.
indicate,
Well,
and
normally
maybe that's
I
what
would
we do.
assume if these emails were sent prior to the meeting, they would be attached to the board packet as comment to whatever item they were.
They're public comment.
So
They're not
technic-
part of the board packet. So they're read during public comment. So
Okay.
that's why you don't get them, because they could unduly influence all of you if it was about a vote, and it wouldn't give the public the ability to speak at the same time. So that's why they're not put as part of the board packet.
Okay, because I know at the city they attach, if they
We
get
could look into
communication
it.
about an item, I'm not saying that we have to do this, I'm just,
Right,
it's,
it is different there, yeah.
it is,
that-
they definitely attach it.
If it's
It is a
public.
part, and they republish packets constantly, which is a nuisance for the staff when these emails keep coming through.
Mm-hmm.
So,
We can look into that.
Yeah, I'm not
Um,
suggesting we do that. I just,
Right. Well, and it's just difficult. Well, we've gotten everyone trained to know if you send it to the board, board
Meeting,
meeting
then it gets
email, that
read.
that's like as if you were here. But, we may get correspondence directly to one of us or all of us, and that isn't read out loud because that's not a public comment. That's a letter
Right.
just to us. And so that's where we could ask legal if, the email link is not legal. We don't have to provide that.
So how?
But, yeah, if
Ju-
it's,
Just a reminder, this came about because we went to virtual meetings and we were legally obligated to provide a forum for public comment. And that's where the email address came to. And so now we're back in person. We have no obligation to keep this email address. I agree with you, Scott, that if this gives people the opportunity to provide input, great. We just need to monitor it so that if we have a hot topic, the day of the hot topic, we're not making up the rules.
right,
Um,
of
Right.
course.
So,
But I
That could be
guess
part of the auto respond too, that you notify people, first of all, that make sure it's, 390 words or less, and that unless we hear otherwise, this comment will be read at the board meeting as appropriate under
public comment.
comment on agenda items or public comment on non-agenda items. That way they get a little feedback that says, we're going to read this, so that they can rescind it if they.
right, or rescind it,
Just-
saying,
just
no,
a
I
thought.
don't want that publicly read.
Right.
Right.
But I
right.
guess we just need to ask legal if we get those public comment before the packet of, I don't know what the deadline would be, do we have to have those
Included?
included as, anyone in the world can read?
I'll ask legal, but
which
I'm almost certain no.
Which seems no, because like you said, it's in lieu of being in-person comment. It's not, so that's what's different about it. It's not a project where they're doing a correspondence, they want to be for and against, and you have it part of that vote.
It just seems like we have quite a bit of leeway to decide how these emails are dealt with. And that's kind of more the discussion. I mean, that's.
I'll get that question answered
Yeah.
before you have your board workshop, so that you have some options in front of you.
So, yeah, so it'll be on the agenda for discussion at the in-person meeting on November 10th, 6 PM, in person here, 306. And then we'll decide further, but it looks like it could go for November 18th. Hopefully we have all our questions answered. So if there's no other comments, we can move on to our last information and discussion item, I believe.
The fun stuff, board policies.
The mandated conditionally mandated board policy administrative regulation update. And I do have my sheet, hopefully. And this is just information and discussion, and then if everything, let me grab my notes.
So while you're getting organized, I just want to, those of you that are on multiple devices, so if you noticed, if you're on an iPad, it doesn't show any of the changes.
No,
But
I
if you're
noticed that
on
last night.
that,
right.
it shows them, but it's not, the coding that's on there,
Yeah,
oh,
So I have
see,
I have a sample.
there it is.
No, this is what,
Do you want to share with me?
Yeah, I was gonna
No,
say.
no, I got it all. But I was just, I know that Renee said there's 4 versions or something that they
Yeah.
get. And I was just commenting that I was looking for that
For the
legend that's
color
referenced
legend.
to there and don't see it anywhere. And then at the beginning, you could click on that and it would go to the stuff on the right. But anyway, you can't see that on a tablet and.
Right, depending on what you're looking at,
Yeah,
I found the
so
same thing and
I-
it changed.
I figured it all out and was like,
maybe we should put this at our workshop.
So, well, I just wanted, before we get into the, just on the format, before we get into the meat of this, I did talk to Renee about doing, on this cover page, to have policy, and then have like the description of it, and then on this page to have it where option, page 1 and 2 will have an option,
Yeah,
mandatory
that's
law
really
on this, like as a category, and then maybe like placement in math course, this BP was not previously adopted, and have it right on this cover page. So at least you can quickly look at the ones that need to maybe be sent out to admin. And then she said that she can produce this format, for the first read, like the old, it'll probably add pages, but it'll show clearly what was there, what struck out, what's new. And then when we're ready for action, she can do, more like this, or there's another version. So she can still produce this. So
And
we could talk further about it at our board workshop, but just know that we're still trying to get the right format for everyone so that it's.
Well, and I know Google helps or tries to help, but I don't know why what I see on my tablet is different than when I'm on my Mac.
I was
mean, it's
reading
the
it
same-
last night. It was great, little yellow boxes everywhere, yeah.
Yeah,
And
then,
even
I
on the
mean,
Chromebook, I was
luckily
looking.
I had been on my desktop first, so I
Right.
saw, I just need to go back there so I could see the, but then it got the box stuff on the right.
So
and
the
getting so
interface,
long.
depending on
Anyway.
what device you're using, because
Right.
even a
Yeah.
Chromebook is different. So that, I don't know how that'll be cured. That's all. I guess we just will know which device to use to what format we
Well, before it was
want.
the same. When it came that way, it didn't matter what I looked on it.
Right.
It was always the same. But I don't know why.
Anyway, so up and coming, we're going to try to make it easier for everyone, because it'd even be, I would think it'd be even easier for Becky to know quickly, like, okay, I got to send this out, or for Renee, that's her job, I got to send this out to nutrition because it's something with, mandates for them. And the board's going to want to know, have they been, is this feasible, or is this, we don't need this option. So, okay, we'll come back in. That was just format questions and needs. So I think most of these were mandates. I think personal illness and injury leave page 15, which is 15 of the device, like 15 out of 82, if that makes sense, had an option.
Yeah, that's the AR 46.
The personal illness and injury leave.
Yeah.
And I think if I understood what I was reading right, we use option 1 because we're
Yes.
still doing differential,
That's
right?
that's what I thought too.
Not 50%. Is that correct? So that's the same for that one, and then AR 4261.1.
Yeah, page 15 and 19. Let me look. Hang on. So it's actually page 15. It is actually, I think they're matched. No, they're one off. So page 15 of the document, but
Right, we're
page
still
16.
doing differential, right? It's not 50% of their pay?
When someone's on leave.
When, for a maternity, it's 50%. Let me pull up the contract.
That's what I'm looking at.
For
So
maternity.
maybe that's another column, Diana, is what's just recommended instead of us trying to guess.
Well, right, because that's
Which
what,
one?
that's what this is. We were thinking that it'd say
Oh, you
like
already put it in?
admin review.
Okay.
Yeah, if you
Mhm.
want to, something
Well-
something like that, where it's like,
I meant like which one they recommended.
right, that, yeah, because that would be on the next, probably the next, like the action one, possibly, or, exactly, they can figure that out, so that it's clear, but they might not have reviewed it yet on the first read, is what, so we're trying
They
to.
live for this stuff.
I know, it's
All
good
this
stuff.
extra time in their lives.
Yeah.
But that would just be an easy reference to go back and know, oh, this was brand new, or we've adopted this before.
Right, and just so the board knows, this particular set is all conditionally or mandated board policy or admin. So there's not a variety of recommended or not recommended or previously adopted or so on. This was a unique set that was put out by.
But we still have to decide the options, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So right now, differential pay, this is in Article 9 of the FBDTA contract. Differential pay is a unit member's daily rate less the cost of the substitute. When a unit member is absent from his or her duties due to illness or injury for a period of time that exceeds the accumulated sick leave, the unit member shall, upon exhaustion of accumulated sick leave, be entitled to differential pay for up to 100 days. Now, maternity is different because in
It's the F,
so maternity
family.
disability due to pregnancy, miscarriage, childbirth, and recovery shall be treated as temporary disability. Female unit members so disabled shall be allowed the benefits provided by Ed Code, illness leave, and this article. So the length. Let's go to entitlements for a second. Maternity, paternity leave granted under this policy shall be the same as sick leave. The unit member, while on such leave of absence, shall be entitled to full daily pay of the balance of the accredited sick leave, differential pay as provided by Education Code 44977 and 449775.
okay, that's option 2.
And that's the one that says that it's 50%.
Yeah.
So when they're out, I believe those two ed codes say that it's 50%.
Because that's option 2.
And-
And then we need them both.
We need them both then, yeah, because that depends on, which is interesting
How
that
does
they
that
hadn't,
work?
California didn't have option 3, which was all of it. Anyway.
I think we'll need to go look at those two codes and see.
More closely.
And I feel like there may have been in an interim year, look at our, the things that we added to the contract in the last couple of years.
This
See if there's
only,
anything there.
so I know that when this had changed, it was because the maternity, paternity leave had changed. Instead of differential, it was 50%. And 50% for most people was better than differential. Unless you were taking leave for fewer than 20 days. If you were taking leave fewer than 20 days, then differential's better because the subrate is less. At day 21, the leave turns into long-term subrate. So if it's long-term subrate, that differential is far more, typically for our teachers who are younger and having babies, is more than a 50%. So that ed code had changed it to where it would be 50%, you would be entitled to 50% of your daily rate of pay.
Okay. So there is a new section in here, Healthy Workplace, Healthy Family Act requirement. So maybe that covers the maternity per se. So this looks like a Wendy review, and make sure we're covering it.
Can't even read my notes here. What is this?
So we just need to make sure we have the right option.
Because then on the AR down for the 4261, there was even a third that
On page
1, 2,
9.
3. I didn't put the pages. I'm sorry.
It's page 1921.
So that one, I just wrote what common practice question mark. So whatever.
Because this is about the continued absence after available sick leave is exhausted differential pay, option 1 or 2.
But then there was even further in that same document. I have notes. There was another 1, 2, or 3. Is that further down?
It's further down.
Yeah. But I mean, it's in.
The same.
Yeah.
It's right after the differential or 50. Then there was the other 3.
Mm-hmm.
Not the catastrophic leave. Class.
Well, it was,
No, way down on AR 4261.1.
yeah, and it was the after working 30 days, person shall be entitled to 1 hour sick leave for every 30. That one goes on and on.
So what's interesting is
Let's
that
see.
this changes it, like, we have 100 days in our contract.
Yeah.
And 100 days, 100 work days is typically 5 months. But the difficulty is that 100 work days goes beyond 5 months typically for us because we have breaks. So if you go with 100 days, that's a different implication than saying 5 months. And I've watched Irma do this, and I've said, no, wait a minute, are we talking work days? And she said,
Right.
Becky, the language is weeks. It doesn't matter how many work days are in a week when we are calculating like some maternity and the FMLA baby bonding time. So it was interesting to watch some of that happen because I've always been on the vein of it's work days, it's work days, it's work days. And so when I looked at this language and it said 5 months, I said, now wait a minute, are we going to say that December is the same equal month as January? Because if I'm on maternity leave, I'm telling you that December and January are not equal.
Right.
And it's because they're not the same number of working days,
Right.
right? So when you look at these options, and they talk about a 5-month period, the hard part is this is the ed code that is quoted in the contract. It is going to be interesting to see how this rolls out and how legal interprets it, because I think they're going to interpret it as a 5-month period and that December has equal weight as January because they took out the word days. So I don't.
Right. Well, it's just like figuring out a salary. Do you do it on 52 weeks, or do you divide that in 26, or do you do it bi-monthly? I mean, you the number's different.
Well,
So you got to be
and-
really careful.
When I gave birth years and years ago, when I gave birth to Russell almost 16 years ago, I only was given my sick days, and then I was able to go on differential. And now our employees have the ability to get 50% of their pay for the allowable pregnancy leave, which is 8 weeks for a cesarean section and 6 weeks for a vaginal birth. And then they get baby bonding time. And so the baby bonding time, I think it's a total of 6 months, is that right? For baby bonding? Or 12 more weeks for baby bonding? I don't remember. But they get additional time for baby bonding. And we didn't have that before. So every time we sit down when we have an employee who's pregnant, Irma and I sit down with the employee, and it's changed every single time. So yet again, Irma's going to love this.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can't really
Complicated.
pick which those
This
are.
yeah, and this needs to go reviewed further by staff, and then provide a recommendation so that we're following the law and our contract. If they,
Yeah,
it'll be
hopefully
interesting
those
if
two
they
go
match.
together.
So does that bring us down to classified personnel?
That's the next place I have it.
The 4,200, which there was an option on page 27.
Right, regarding the merit system, do we
I
use?
thought it might be the option 1.
That's what I thought probably
Yeah.
too, but. Do we incorporate the merit system or do we not?
Oh, and just FYI, the baby bonding is now called parental leave, so it is 12 weeks.
Parental, on top of
Yes, on top of.
12 weeks. Okay. 6 or 8.
Jana, do you have the page reference so Becky can look at that one?
It's page 27 of the document.
And are we looking at exemption for classified service?
Yes. So option 1 and option 2?
So I don't believe we are a merit system district.
I don't think so, but
Correct, Wendy?
I don't believe we are either.
Okay, so
and this
it-
is something actually I just saw the other day that I meant to go back and read from some other source, and I didn't, I kind of set it aside because I didn't think it applied to us.
So we're not a merit system district, so that.
Option 1?
It's
Yeah,
option
it would
one.
be option 1.
Yeah.
So this other one to be determined. Okay. And then the others were mandatory and no options, but I did.
But there is
wanna-
one thing I was going to point out.
Okay.
Before you move on.
Sure.
On policy 4216, the
Mhm.
probationary permanent status, it says that, I was reading down there, a probationary employee who has been employed by the district for 6 months or 130 days of paid service, whichever is longer, shall be classified as a permanent employee of the district, and that's according to Ed Code 45113 and 45301. And our contract, our CSEA contract says that it's a 1-year probationary.
So here's what happened with that. That law changed, and we were allowed to keep that into the contract until the expiration of the contract.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
So we, believe it or not, right before COVID hit, in January of 2020, I sunshined our CSCA openers where we
Mhm.
were going to talk about this. And then COVID hit and we didn't have negotiations.
Okay.
The contract is not expired yet.
Mm.
So we've been trying, we're in this weird area. We've been trying to maintain the 6 months, but we have to change the contract.
Mhm.
So the full contract is, I believe it expires in '22, so it's going to be up for negotiations this year. That's when it'll get fixed. This is Ed Code.
Right, I was going to say,
So-
we have to follow Ed
So we
Code.
have to follow
Yeah.
Ed Code, but right now, until, the one stipulation was, districts could follow it until the entire contract expired. So we're at the point now where we have to do it.
Yeah.
We're going to do it, I had planned to do it, and then
Yeah.
COVID hit.
Okay, I just was like, uh-oh.
Well,
I
good.
had one on BP 6200 that had options,
Okay.
the very last one.
Yeah.
Because
Did I make that
there
up?
wasn't another option before that. Well, I just
Oh, I
wanted to.
thought you said we were done, I'm sorry.
No, she just, yeah, she went back. I had actually gone to dismissal, suspension, disciplinary action. I don't know why that, we'd never had that previously adopted. That's the 4218. But it wasn't, but it's mandatory, so I don't think there's any problem with meeting those needs. 4218.
We've had this in our bargaining unit,
Yeah, it's pretty
master
basic.
agreements.
It's nothing that we wouldn't want as a policy.
Mhm.
So I'm not quite sure why it wasn't in there before. And then the next was the personal illness and injury leave. On
But
page,
just to make a note on this one, that we didn't have it, a lot of these things have been itemized in the CSEA contract, but not the FBDTA contract. And there's a lot of things in there. It's just very specific.
Okay.
And so I'm just calling attention to it, that's all.
So is that something that we, how do we address that if it's different?
It's one of those board policies that we should probably distribute to our employees
Okay.
or to their, to the bargaining unit leadership. So
To know
that
that
they
it's-
understand that this is a board policy.
That it's mandated, it's not optional?
Right.
Okay. So that's something staff will have to, okay, be provided notice.
And obviously, we're not going to do it now because it is just under discussion.
Right. And on page 38 was the next option regarding continued absence after available sick leave is exhausted / differential pay. That
I
goes with
think
that
we
one.
have to do the same, yeah.
Okay. So that's been addressed.
Then
And
there's
there-
a second group of options in this one.
And we may need to
40,
pull
page 40.
these because they may be bargainable. So let me talk with
Okay.
legal to make sure that the option you choose is not something we need to bargain, because it might
Okay.
be.
Okay, because there's,
But
yeah,
if it's
quite
law,
a few.
how are we, that's
Well,
not doing-
because it could, the bargainable part would be, is it differential or is it 50%?
The choosing the option.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
Okay.
it's all, we gotta do one of them.
Yeah, because there's quite a few that this is,
Right.
might not be in line with the language right now in the contracts. So we'll put,
And that 5-month period has the potential to,
be troubling,
uh-huh.
yeah, not equitable.
Right, well, and option 2 says with no fewer than 100 working days of paid leave, so
Okay.
definitely got to figure that out. And so the next set of options, those aren't, they're regarding substitutes. They're not in the bargaining unit,
No.
no. So has to do with how much sick leave that they can accrue and how quickly.
Right, that's on page 40 of the document.
I think what we've been doing is option 3.
3? Okay.
Okay, so we'll make sure we get
But I'll double check that.
that clarified. So I see everything else being mandated, and placement in mathematic courses was not previously adopted. That was 6152.
That seemed like it was based on equity, making sure that we don't.
The placement,
The
right,
placing
and if-
students is not
So I don't know.
subjective, it's.
Right. And if it wasn't a good fit, that they could get out of it for the placement.
Right, or if they wanted to be in it, somebody didn't say, I don't think you're a math person, you know.
Which is, I didn't write down the page number.
And then I just have an option on the last one, BP 6200. And I wrote option 1 question mark.
What page?
I don't know, I didn't write.
So 65 is the math,
I'll try to remember that next time.
because I had page 78 and 79 as being
either.
options, community day school and adult education. But just wanted to make sure the math placement course is something that we can provide.
We have something, I don't,
With the,
the math placement.
So
We
it's
have
on-
something.
It's on
We've
page
looked at that
65 of the
before.
document.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was numbered, but we have. we've
Something
approved
before?
Something with, yeah. Because.
Because it says like, because this is, yeah, because this says, the placement protocol shall provide for at least one reevaluation within the first month of the school year to ensure that students are appropriately placed in mathematics courses, and shall specify the criteria the district will use to make this determination. Any student found to be misplaced shall be promptly placed in the appropriate math course. Can we do this? Or do we have?
So for us, really, freshman year, the minimum math requirement for a high school diploma is Algebra 1. The lowest math class that we offer at Fort Bragg High School is Algebra 1, and that's really Ed Code, to be quite honest with you.
Okay.
So what we've done is we have an Algebra Essentials class that takes the first semester of Algebra 1 and teaches it over the whole year, so the teacher has time to do some remediation. And then the following year, they do second semester of Algebra 1 through the whole year with the idea to get remediation so that they can be successful in geometry, because we have a 3-year math requirement. So what is our policy on this? All of our kids who come from 8th grade, we look at what they did in the 8th grade and what their grades were. We do have a placement test in the 8th grade to see if they're algebra ready. We are now offering an accelerated algebra class in the summer, or accelerated geometry class, so that if kids want to move forward, they have the ability to get that class out of the way, do Algebra 1 as a freshman, and go right into Algebra 2. So I can memorialize what we do in writing, but I will also tell you that our high school does a great job. When a kid is not doing well in a math class, they're not leaving them in there to fail. We already have the situation happening right now where we have some kids in an Algebra 1 class who aren't doing well. And they may be kids who come to us from other districts or kids who come to us from other countries, and we're making our best guess. And then we realize, whoa, put the brakes on. It's mid-October here. They're not doing well. Let's move them into the Algebra Essentials class.
Okay.
Or this kid's killing it. Do we keep them in the algebra class? Can we accelerate them up? We typically keep them in the algebra class to let them continue to just rock star their way
Succeed.
through it, because we have a 3-year math requirement.
Okay.
So, but all those conversations happen through the counseling office. Mark and Tomas are really good at making sure they're appropriately placing our students. And then the administration is involved, and they meet weekly. So our kids here at Fort Bragg High School do not fall through the cracks.
Sounds-
And if they came from Fort Bragg Middle School, then Fort Bragg Middle School does a great job of making sure they say, this is where we think these kids should go. So we haven't had an issue. This really is for larger districts that have lots of movement from towns to schools and they have many feeders and many high schools. So for us, do we have something that's clearly delineated in writing? No, but I can write it all down and tell you what we do.
Well, I
But
think we're
everything that's
meeting
in
that.
here, you
Yeah,
do.
I think we're
Okay.
meeting that. It
Everything.
just might not be that first month. Like that language is, I think it maybe says shall, but definitely you're assessing and making sure that.
I think they actually do within the first
And then you have
month. That's 4
assets as
weeks.
well. I mean, you're providing, and that was in
Yeah.
that policy as well, to have
Yeah.
extra support, which would be the assets after
And
school or
now
before
we have
school.
paper.
Now we have
And now we
paper,
have
so
paper.
I think we covered it. Thank you for making sure. So I think the adult education had an option, which is page,
Did you say
80 the last
68?
page, 79.
Okay.
So I thought there was one on 78, but I'm not seeing it now.
I'm pretty sure that's one because we don't
That's what I
participate in the MCOE
Yeah,
Right.
adult.
that was my guess. but
Yeah.
Good guess.
Oh, option 1.
You guys are the.
Okay, I think we got through it. I don't know why I had page 78, 'cause I don't see anything. Community day school did not have an option. Or did it?
Oh, goodness, my computer's getting tired. Low battery.
It is 8 after 8.
Oh my goodness, folks.
I think the Wi-Fi is
Oh,
Did it?
on. No, it's just,
It's flickering.
Unsettled.
we're taxing it right now.
Okay, I'm glad we don't have 2
85
machines
pages
going.
or whatever.
Okay, so I think this is just for information and discussion, but I think we thoroughly decided the options along with more review in order to make them.
For the leave, you know.
So I'll look into the 100 days versus the 5 months.
And these items will,
The differential versus 50%.
Yeah.
those that are ready will be on the action calendar for November 18. And so the next item on the agenda is board reports.
well, I'll jump in because I've done a variety of things. I went to Tony Thurman's meeting on biliteracy, which was interesting, moving in a good direction. But the most fun thing I did, well, I helped run the flu shot clinic, and that was really fun to see so many staff members, so, and including Nate and Jamie. But I got to judge the halls for homecoming, and I love homecoming.
Fun.
And so it was very, it was like Old Home Week. I enjoyed that thoroughly, so thanks for the invite.
Do we have another report?
Okay, I'll go. I attended site council at the high school. We got some more parents this time. It was exciting. Parent night was very nice too, because they did plan to do it during homecoming halls. That was very fun to be on campus that night. I've gone to a couple volleyball games. That's great, as Diana was saying. It's just nice to see kids out and about. The FFA, I didn't go last night, but my son did. But I did go to Boonville Fair with the kids last month, and that was pretty amazing to be back at doing those things too. The middle school, I was involved in open gym for a little while, so it was great again to see kids out and about, and they do manage to keep the mask on pretty well, unless they're running and it's. But anyway, they did do it, and then volleyball games there too. And we had agenda setting and board chat. We had 2 parents this morning. Similar issues to the parents that came tonight. That was their concerns. And then Diana charged us with reading.
Option.
So I did get it done.
I ordered it.
So what was interesting so far is to think about how they would write it if they were living during the pandemic. So I just kind of thought that as I'm reading it, thinking, it's just a different time that we're dealing with. But it is, I am enjoying it so far, and I think it'll be great. I don't know if we're going to talk about it more next week or 2 weeks or whenever that is. But
At our workshop, yep.
Yep, it's on the agenda.
And it reminds me, I always say that we ask staff and everybody to do the circle of inquiry and these things, and I think it's just as important for us to do it too. And so we invested a lot of resources into the MIG training, and I think this will put us back through it, kind of indirectly. And and it always reminds us when we go to those conferences, why we're doing this work. We don't,
Right.
It's not for the pay, and it's not for, I think I'm away from my family tonight too. And honestly, in my household tonight would have been a great time to be home, because we're having a little bit of trouble with one of my kids. And
Yeah,
so,
it's hard. It is. Yeah, thank you
But
for
I do it because
for the greater good.
I love this district, and
Yeah.
so
Well
anyway,
said.
thank you for suggesting that I get that off the bookshelf. And
It's a book you already had. Scott, did you have a report?
Yeah, I attended the couple of the college night and the financial aid and homecoming and seeing the hallways, and just really nice to see it alive and active, and seeing what a lot of the teachers are doing in their classrooms, at least in the high school. So it was really nice.
And I attended the board chat with Kathy this morning, and like she said, it was about government mandates on the COVID shot. Testing at the dance came up, and volunteers in the classroom were questions. And then I also attended the high school site council, which as a parent, and I didn't get to attend any Redwood events, like their meetings, a site council meeting. And they had a parent club meeting as I was driving volleyball players across the county. So my car is going to be happy to have a break, because it's a haul getting out of here. So it's been really fun. The kids are really having a good time. And I also watched, it was between the 2 meetings, there was CSBA, how to deal with meetings and chaos. And they gave us some really good tips, and one that we can't use if you were to have a public and that they didn't want to simmer down and they're being disruptive, that in old times before September 30th you could just say, I'm sorry, we're gonna convert this meeting virtually, and that's kind of a way to curb that. But they had other items that you could do, like take a break, let everyone just 5-minute break, and or if it was serious, you could just say, we're going to continue this meeting tomorrow. We've done a continuation of a meeting, but they gave some really good options on trying to get through your meeting and make sure that you're focusing on student achievement and that you're trying to get your business done, and not to have public input derail your meeting, and to kind of keep it, so that was a good virtual conference that they provided. And I also, The Governance Core is a book that Kathy had recommended when she was president, and there's another book as well that we received from CSBA, and it has 9 chapters. So the charge was to read a chapter a month. So it's really, it's not heavy reading. And I just wanted to read 2 quick things out of it. And this really simply put, governance is the steering and management is the rowing. So that's where we have to be sure that we are, as a board, like Becky's put it before, we're kind of the grandparents, and we get to watch and make sure everything, we're monitoring, and so we get to worry. We get to worry about a lot of things, as grandparents do. And then the management, the staff, they're actually down there doing the work and making the choices and deciding on how things are going to roll out. We're the what, you're the how. So that it's just keeping those parameters in mind. And then the moral imperative is all about children learning. And so it says, with trustees, superintendent, staff, faculty, and parents, if they all have that same understanding of the moral imperative, which is children learning, then you'll accomplish amazing things year after year. So just keeping student achievement and keeping that as the focus. And so anyway, so I think it'll be meaningful because we aren't going to get to do any PD out of town, and so we're trying to do it efficiently and still having the conversations, which will occur at our special meeting. And then Talking Across the Divide was a book I came across by Justin Lee, and I don't think it's on our read for the district, but it is a really quick read, and it's basic, but it's just really good information about, in a polarizing environment, how we can talk about the middle. The middle is not talked about, and it just gave some really good points about taking the emotion out of it, trying not to take things personally. I mean, just basic things we all know, but it's hard when someone's got their finger in your face and it gets to be personal really quickly. So anyway, I'd recommend that. I'm just trying to keep all of those. Talking Across the Divide, Justin Lee. And I actually just did an audiobook so I could do my chores and still listen to something. But you could definitely, I got it on Libby, but you could definitely read it. It's not very, very long. It was 6 hours audio, so it's quick. And so anyway, so I'm going to stop here because I'm talking too much. Sorry about that. So advanced planning, suggestions for future board meetings. So I think we have a few specials coming up on the November 8th, which will be in person. We won't have recording, or we won't have live stream. And then November 10th are the next.
Can you tell us again what those are for?
So November 8th is benchmark.
November 8th, there's a new thing on it now. So November 8th is for our schools to report their benchmark data and our student achievement data on what we have right now from our internal benchmarks. And then also we will have QKA come to you to present some options for alt ed. That's coming in a little bit higher than we had hoped. So we're going to have to make some decisions on that. So that's going to happen on November 8th. November 10th is your board workshop, where you get to talk about all your fun stuff. And I will be here with you on that.
Yes, yeah, because it does involve you. Well, in the sense that we're all team members here and we all have different roles. So it's good to revisit that.
So is there reading we're supposed to do for November 10th?
No.
Okay.
You could choose to read the book and have a discussion. And I don't think there's an extra copy at the district office, but they're willing to purchase it for you. These were ones that I had on hand. I don't know.
I just ordered mine through Amazon. It'll be here Saturday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Take on my vacation.
We only have to read one chapter. Anyway, so what the other thing I brought up for future planning was, after we're done with agenda setting, and we can talk about it more at the next agenda setting, but I thought it would be nice to have the board see the first read of the agenda so they could see what was up and coming. So then you'd have plenty of time to know how to budget your time if you have to do policy or read a chapter or whatever you need to do to be prepared for the meetings. I know everyone's strapped on time, and we do have work other than the school district business. So I think the housekeeping reminders and announcement, are there any revisions on that? Looks like there's
No,
makeup
but
pictures.
I'm not going to be able to go to the parent club meeting because I'm going to be on vacation.
On October 26th?
Yeah.
Okay, so I can attend
Sorry.
that. That would be fun. I don't know what day of the week that is, but,
It's usually
It's
a
a
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And I think I will be there, so
You'll be there as well as a parent?
Yeah.
Okay.
So a third person does one.
Okay. And then we have November 1st is no school for children, but it's Teacher Professional Development Day. And we have our special meeting on the 8th.
And just so you know, I will be sending out a parent square message reminding folks about November 1st, because it's the first time we're doing this.
Is it?
This is the first time we are taking
Oh,
November 1st
it seems like
off.
we had that. We've always talked about it would be a good day to have
Yeah.
off.
So
That's a
Okay.
great
we will
plan.
heavily advertise that.
Okay, and then November 9th is Middle School Site Council. So Mary, you're able to
And
make that?
I'm just going to look at my calendar if
And then
it
I think
doesn't
Joe
die.
said that there is Redwood Parents Club is also on that same day.
On,
So there's 3 meetings that day, I think. I think that's what, I wrote that down.
I
We can check that.
actually
Yeah.
have a class. I cannot go to that either. I have a class that I have to do that night.
Yeah, I thought I
That
wrote
doesn't
that
end
down.
until 6.
Okay, so we'll look on our personal board calendars, because that'll have, so that's the site council as well?
Yeah.
Okay,
Kathy, are you going to site council at middle school or?
3:30. I might be able to do that. I'll coordinate with Kathy. And then there's a
Okay, sorry
Redwood
about that.
ELAC meeting on the 9th, so you can't do
Steve's
that.
birthday, but.
And the DLAC meeting.
And the DLAC is the same time, well, it's a half hour before our workshop.
Oh,
So I
right.
can attend the first half hour. It's
Okay.
virtual, so I can just get here early.
Mary, but the Redwood ELAC, that day you're not available.
The 9th is when I'm not, yeah, I have
Okay.
a class.
So I'll try to attend that. Then we have the workshop, we have Veterans Day off, the 11th, and then Three Rivers Charter School
can
on the
do that.
16th. And then our regular meeting is November 18th. Mary's on agenda setting on November 8th.
Mm-hmm.
And our student rep, Joe, will do the patriotic exercise. So I think if there are no further reminders or announcements, I will ask for a motion.
I move we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Well, second.
Very good. So moved. We adjourn at 8:25.